Hello, I'm Toycat, and I learned to drive less than a year ago in rural England, and there, the roads look like this, and the streets look like this, whereas most American cities seem to have their roads looking like this, and their streets also looking like this because they're the exact same thing, and this is a big thing I've noticed as I've driven a lot over America. However, there is one city that stands out, and admittedly in my limited driving experience in just 4 countries, and I've only had a year of it so far, but the craziest place by far that I've done anything in has been Vegas. Las Vegas is in a valley. In fact, there's a whole bunch of other cities in the valley, but that's a whole second channel video. My point is though that you'll always have beautiful nature because on every side of you there are these beautiful mountains. But it's not just nature. If you look around, the man-made structures are also incredible. 5 of the 10 biggest hotels in the world are on the Las Vegas Strip, and when you're driving down I-15, you go past most of these hotels, which means you'll see some of the monuments to mankind's arrogance in a way that I absolutely love. This is a desert with a lot of money rolling into it, and they want to show that off, but it's not just Vegas particular things, there's also America particular things like driving anywhere, some negative effects for people, and I wanted to explain the good, the bad, and the weird of it from a British perspective today. Obviously, this is just from my perspective of my life experience, etc, etc, etc. If you are a Las Vegas local, you might love drunk driving, you might love turning left and having to wait 3 minutes to do so, but as a British person, I'm not used to these things, and I wanted to explain that for everyone else out there, so let's jump right into it with the good, because in my opinion, the best thing about driving in Vegas is that the views are beautiful. Las Vegas is a valley, or the Las Vegas Valley is a valley, because there's lots of other cities. There's a whole second channel video about that, but the Las Vegas Valley is a valley, and so you see mountains everywhere, you see canyons, you see lots of beautiful things, basically no matter where you drive. I like that a lot. I also like the fact that even if you're just driving down I-15 or whatever, you see the Strip and these giant casinos, some of the biggest hotels in the world. I think 5 of the 10 biggest hotels in the world are along the Strip, so it's crazy being able to see all of that stuff. I like driving for that reason. I also like driving for the fact that you have every business is basically accessible to the car. In a lot of cities that, like the inner core is more transit dependent, it means that you should like get out of your car and park, and that's great for the health of a city or whatever, but as a driver, it's fun just to be able to park literally anywhere because every business has to, accept that most people drive to places, and so you can park and you can do everything you want anytime you want. It's very convenient as an end user, and I have to say, it's very fun, and also it's the fastest way to get around by so far. If, I mentioned in my second channel video that 2 kind of fancy cities that are on opposite sides of the Las Vegas Valley are Summerlin and Henderson. That's where, you like to live if you want to live in like suburbs of Vegas, but kind of on opposite sides. If you wanted to walk that distance, a 24-mile walk by the way, it would take 8 hours. If you wanted to take the bus, it's like a car. So for my American viewers, a bus is like a car, but like lots of people get on it. I'm memeing on you, I'm sorry. But if you want to take the bus, you take 3 separate buses, and it takes 2 hours and 25 minutes. It's genuinely slower than just biking, which takes 2 hours and 8 minutes, whereas the car, for a 32-mile drive, somehow does it in 34 minutes, which is, it's nuts if you ask me. Anyway, so Summerlin to Henderson, opposite sides of the valley, is 34 minutes, meaning unless you're going literally diagonal edge to edge, or you're going from high traffic to high traffic through more high traffic, you're gonna be, doing journeys of less than half an hour each way, and there is very little traffic, so the city being built around the car is very useful for the infrastructure, both in terms of businesses and parking, and also it means that you get some great views as you're doing it. However, there's the bad, which I think we should just move into now. So the bad is gonna come with a caveat, right? That obviously, if you are a car driver, sometimes you're a pedestrian. Even if that just means walking between your car and the business, or walking between your car and your house, or walking from your house to the convenience store, you become a pedestrian sometimes, and having 8-lane roads be the norm, having 10, 12, 14-lane roads that humans have to walk on the side of, it's terrifying to the humans, which means that, for instance, if I have to walk to the convenience store, I have to cross, I think it's 12 lanes of traffic, and that means waiting 2 minutes. That means sitting on the side of lots of neon going past, like one little left turn away from very, very squishy death because they're going 50, 60 miles per hour. But also it means when you're crossing the road, cars turn because intersections you can always turn right and you can sometimes turn left even if you can't go straight based on the turn signals. Those turn signals and those, your right if always right, doesn't mention, oh yeah, watch out for pedestrians. I think a lot of people might know instinctively to watch out for pedestrians, but you see a green light and you're not thinking there might be pedestrians crossing there, which means as a pedestrian, a lot of cars get really close and then last minute are like, oh god, there's a person, and stop. And that's like a constant reminder, even while crossing the road, even when it's your time to do so, that like, oh yeah, a car might just decide out of nowhere, or a car might not decide. They might be on their phone or something, and now I'm squished. I mean, in reality, I think cars these days, if they hit you, especially at turning speeds, you just go on the bonnet and you get that fun experience of like being on someone's windscreen, but it might break something, and at the very least, I don't want it to happen. Is that a good enough reason? So yeah, being a pedestrian sucks, and also turning through intersections sucks for that reason, because there's so many lanes wide, you don't know where a pedestrian will be. There's so much you've got to look at because they're so busy, and also I think another bad thing has to be the fact that a car-dependent city, obviously, I think smaller cities need to be car dependent to some extent, but having a really big city be car dependent can have questionable, like social outcomes on its own right. But the big and more concerning one is the fact that Vegas is a city known for its nightlife. You might not know about this, but Vegas is actually quite the party city. Wow, that's crazy, right? And so there are all these people that are doing these things where you drink intoxicating substances, or you put them in other means. I'm not going to judge you. And then because those places where they like to do those things, whether it's the Strip, it's downtown, it's your local bar, it's probably going to be a drive away from your house. And so yeah, you can drive both ways. Except now the way home, you're going to be a whole mess. So yeah, drunk drivers is a much common phenomenon because it's a city that is famous for party and drink and drugs and all the fun vices. Vice City, Sin City, whatever. I think Vice City's in Miami. But it's the city of all those things, and then also it's car dependent, which requires a lot of focus. And that means that you've got two options, because public transport isn't viable, especially at night. There is one good bus in Vegas. It's the Deuce. It runs along the Strip, but you probably don't live on the Strip, and honestly, if you live in Vegas for long enough, you're probably not going to the Strip, so you've got one good bus and it doesn't go anywhere near you, and so instead you either pay for Lyfts or Ubers each way, or you go there and you say to yourself, well, I won't drink, and then what people seem to do is that, I'm sure it's not that great of a phenomenon, but just the conflict of interest of car-dependent city, car needs focus, activity-dependent city where you lose focus for 8 to 12 hours after you do it, just seems like a bad combo, just from my perspective. Don't shoot the messenger. Instead, if you want to shoot the messenger, here are the weird things that I just wanted to share, because here's the deal, right? I want to talk about the weird culture shock side of things, because we can have perspectives about like, well, is car dependent city a good design philosophy? Should pedestrians have rights? I mean, who do pedestrians think they are? I bet they don't even own cars. But the more interesting thing, I think, is when talking about the weird side of things where I don't understand the width of roads there. The widest road I've driven in the UK was 4 lanes in each direction. That's the M25. I don't know if there is another road that is 8 lanes across. So that's 4 and 4. And that's a motorway, by the way. That is a controlled access highway. In Las Vegas, if you pick any of the major arterial streets, it's a minimum of 4 lanes each way. That's the baseline. But usually it ramps up to 5, 6, 7 when you're coming up to an intersection. And that has two knock-on effects. One, you're on a 7-lane road, which means there's 6 cars potentially horizontal to you, as well as whatever's behind you. There's just so much traffic, it's hard to keep track of it, and like, in my opinion, defensively driving means keeping track of all threats at all time, but there's so many threats that you can't keep track of all of them. But I think ignoring that, it also means that working out which lane you're in is such a crisis. Like, you want to, okay, so you turn right, which you do on red, you do that from the right lane, but then your next turn is a left, right? You're now in the right lane and you need to merge 6 lanes over to get to the left lane. And obviously that's fine when there's no cars around, you just do a little, but if there are cars around, doing it safely means ideally shifting 1 lane at a time. Check, check, check. 1 lane at a time, check, check, check. Obviously you can try and line up stuff, but doing 6 lanes is so hard when there's a lot of traffic. Finding the gaps for it, etc, 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 and just knowing which lane to be in is so important, because if you want to turn left and you're in the 4th lane, you're in the middle lane, you're so far from a left or a right turn. I've wanted to turn right before, but I've been in lane 2 and just you're not going to be able to get across there, so you just have to accept rerouting, which is weird. The position of you on the road has only ever been like a discipline thing to me. Like, yeah, stay on the right so people can overtake on the left. And obviously I know in some cities in the UK there's like left turning, right turning lane, and it's important because there's 2 lanes and you got to decide right lane or left lane. But having 7 lanes and having like, yeah, so there's like 2 lefts, 2 rights, 1 ahead, or it could be 2 lefts, 1 right, 4 ahead. It could be 1 left, 1 right, 5 ahead. It depends on the road, and you need a lot of local knowledge just to be able to exist. Also, the speed limits are so much higher. The general rule for the UK is 30 miles per hour if it's a built-up area, 40 miles per hour if it's like a dedicated, like, road between places. 45 miles per hour seems to be the standard. Even when the speed limit's not 45 miles per hour, people still do at least 45 miles per hour. But because 45 is the standard for the speed limit, the actual speed people are doing is 50, 55, sometimes 60. There's this one strip of road that, there's a lot of very interesting places where it just seems as though speed limits go out the window. Even one of my favorite ones is there's this airport connector. For some, again, this is just weird. So many of the journeys you take, if you're starting near Paradise and you're going anywhere southeast or southwest, take you through the airport. It doesn't make any sense to me that the airport is a logical place to send traffic, but it is in Las Vegas. Anyway, so you're going through the airport connector, and the speed limit is said to you over and over again, 35 miles per hour. But if you're doing 35 miles per hour, you're so much slower than everyone else around you, it's dangerous. Bus drivers, taxi drivers, police, they do 45, 50, 60, and it's very confusing to see the difference between, speed limits are much more of a suggestion there than a reality, which is nice. I feel like that fits the vibe of the city, but it doesn't fit with the whole, there's just an air of unlawfulness that also I feel like I can't partake in because I'm a foreigner. And I feel left out, which is a whole thing, because, if you're in a foreign country and you do a crime, such a bigger deal than when you're in your own one. You can be deported. That can be on your permanent, every time you come in, hey, so we know you committed a crime, you want to do another one again? Just, long story short, it's not my goal. Also, going right on red, this is not Vegas exclusive, but this is America exclusive as best I can tell. I not even all of the United States. I think it's not in New York, it's not in San Francisco. Big cities usually don't have right on red, but Vegas, you better believe it does. So you're in the right lane. And you can turn right, except what if you're in the right lane and you want to go forward? Sometimes you can choose which one. You feel like such a monster, and there's nothing you can do about it. Everyone behind you I need to go right, let me in front, and it's like, this is... Okay, so right on red, yeah, you can always turn right, even if it's red, because obviously, as long as you can fit into the traffic, there's no conflict point. But yeah, it's exhausting to me, mentally. I hate impeding other people's progress. That's the one cool thing about traffic lights. I'm not stopping because I want to be stopping. I'm stopping because the traffic lights say to do so. It's really hard to work things out. There's a really nice order to everything in American traffic, besides lanes, which are right and also forwards. You know that arrow I'm talking about. Also, one final last thing. Roundabouts. So I've only encountered 2 of them in Vegas so far. There might only be 2 in the whole thing. I hear that they're common enough in Summerlin. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, so I've encountered 2 roundabouts so far, and I actually like American roundabouts a lot. The design itself I don't like. I feel like it's there's too many lines to stop you from running into other people. But what I like about American roundabouts is the signage. I'm gonna go onto a random street, North Town Center Drive and Canyon Run Drive. So if you look at the signs for this roundabout coming in from the, I guess we'll come in from the north because I don't see it from the east. Okay, if you look at the signs on the road here, one of these signs is roundabout is on your left, go right around it and kind of come left, or go forwards. And on the right there, for the forwards and right lane, it's forwards and then right. And then there's a dedicated right-hand filter lane. This is high quality roundabout stuff. Also, it's got a pedestrian crossing. Pedestrian crossings in Vegas? Who are these pedestrians that live here? Why haven't we ran them over yet? Anyway, also the roundabout then has palm trees on it. Look at this. The little yield sign to remind you that, yeah, you've got to yield to anyone who's in front of you. To the left, I guess that would be in America. It's all reversed. I think it's so cleverly, because this is a roundabout designed for people that don't know roundabouts, i.e. the average, American, Nevada, California, whatever state they're from driver. Because this is designed for the average person who doesn't know roundabouts, they had to sign everything, and I love it. If you look around the roundabout, you can see one-way signs to remind you only to go one way around the roundabout. And yeah, I just think it's so cool to see it all deconstructed in front of you. because ultimately, once you deconstruct it that well, you don't need all of this learned knowledge. And I think that the cool thing about driving in America as a whole, and this is where a lot of downsides come in, but every single road sign assumes you don't know how to drive. And I kind of like that. As a foreign driver, I feel like I can learn basically everything by just following the road, following the vibes. You know, like I don't look at speed limits, I look at other drivers. Following the vibes, and then also when it gets essential and you're confused, then there'll be a sign that's like, here's what you actually do. And yeah, I think that's useful. Maybe you don't, maybe you think that you love rules, and if so, have you heard about this great German country? But no, yeah, I hope you'll enjoy this video. One of the cool things about having a license is being able to drive in other places now. In case you're curious, the 4 countries I've driven in so far are Canada, the US, the UK, and Italy, and it's so interesting to see different driving cultures. And I like the overall attitude of Americans, where it's like, yeah, we'll assume you don't know how to drive because, let's be honest, we don't have real standards on our tests. We have to give it to everyone because it's an essential tool for economic mobility. And so then, giving you road signs that are pretty good. If you look at the highways, I don't understand what's going on actually. Actually, yeah, let's talk about this. So I'm gonna go onto I-15 near Mandalay Bay. So, okay, you're on a highway. Ignoring the fact that there's 2 separate, highways next to each other. I don't know what that right highway's doing there. But you can see there's these little dots on the line. Oh, I've gone this whole way in the video and I haven't referenced the bots dots. Okay, just look on the road right now. Do you see those dots? They are physical, apparently they're good for light or something. And sometimes there's 2 of them. So 2 is meant to mean do not cross. But sometimes you'll have a whole lane, the merge lane has 2 of them too, kind of telling you not to cross it. And I don't know what to do about that. If it says do not cross and it just takes you off the highway, were you never allowed onto the highway? Or are you meant to cross the do not cross line, just do it carefully? And if that means do it carefully, what does that mean? Also, if you followed this I-15 north far enough, sometimes there are painted lines, but very rarely. Do the painted lines mean different things to the bots dot strips? Can someone explain that to me in the comments? Also, yeah, where is interesting to drive around the world? Because I'm terrified of going somewhere and forgetting some key road rule and getting in some real trouble. You know, if you're driving around South Korea, and just as a fun example, that'd be a fun country, right? But if you're driving around one of these countries, how does it work? I don't know the answers. I would like to know the answers because, yeah, you know what, should we do a fun list of countries I'd like to drive in just to round out the video? Because Japan isn't on the list. Japan is so expensive to drive in. As best I can tell, you take the train around Japan, because that's what you do. But Korean driving sounds very interesting. Driving in China would be the ultimate, I might get in some real trouble, or things might be fun here. Taiwan, I think it's a train country, but it's one that I'd love to dig my heels into. I'd like to go around Estonia. I feel like Estonia is a country that it's hard to get around without it. And then finally, just to round this one up, I think Norway, because you can catch trains or you can fly to the far north of Norway. But I hear there's some amazing road infrastructure, because Norway has that problem where they just have too much money and not enough infrastructure projects to spend it on. So they just there's a lot of silly over-the-top ones because their country looks crazy. And, you know, if you see me driving in any of those places, just know I fulfilled a life goal. And now if you never see me driving one of those places, then my life goals mean nothing, and neither does anything I say. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Hope you found it interesting. Hope that I had enough footage to line it up correctly. Because, yeah, it's so weird to talk about and explain, and maybe you liked it anyway. Either way, 3rd channel, don't care. Goodbye. Clearly I care. Look at the editing on this thing. But yeah, goodbye.